What does light in the darkness mean to you? In the heart of the Atlantic Ocean, over 600 years ago, a sacred image mysteriously arrived on the shores of Tenerife, bringing the light of faith to a people who had yet to hear the gospel. This is the story of Our Lady of Candelaria, the Virgin who carries the candle, a symbol of Christ, the light of the world. She became a mother and teacher to countless devoted followers in Spain and the Americas. This devotion reminds us that Mary always guides us to her Son, illuminating our path with the maternal tenderness that only a mother can offer. Chapter 1. The Miraculous Discovery in Tenerife. In the year 1392, according to tradition, two Guanche shepherds were tending their flocks near the mouth of the Chimisay ravine on the island of Tenerife. That afternoon, as the sun began to descend on the horizon, they noticed something unusual on the beach. A figure stood upright, seemingly watching over the sea. The Guanches, the original people of the Canary Islands, had never seen anything like it in their land. One of the shepherds, curious and perhaps a little fearful, approached the figure to examine it more closely. To his astonishment, he discovered it was an image carved from wood, representing a beautiful woman, holding a child in her left arm and a candle in her right hand. The image was approximately 3 feet tall, and its features possessed a delicacy that no Guanche artisan could have achieved. The shepherds tried to move the image, but something extraordinary happened. Their arms became paralyzed whenever they tried to touch it. Frightened, yet also filled with wonder, they ran to tell their chieftain and the Guanche chieftain of that region. Chieftain Aden, a wise and prudent man, understood that this was no ordinary image, and ordered that it be treated with the utmost respect and veneration. The image was carried with great reverence to the Akbinico cave, where it was kept as a sacred treasure. Although the Guanches did not know the meaning of this representation, they felt in their hearts that it was something divine. The presence of the image began to bring about changes in the people. The sick were healed, hearts were calmed, and an inexplicable peace spread among those who venerated it. As time passed, when Christian missionaries arrived on the islands, they revealed the mystery of the image. It was the Blessed Virgin Mary with the child Jesus. The miraculous finding of the image on the beaches of Tenerife was no accident, but divine providence. The Mother of God had arrived before the evangelizers to prepare the hearts of the Guanches and open the way for the Christian faith in those lands. Chapter 2. The Guanches and the Mother of God. Chieftain Aden was the first among the Guanches to recognize the sacred nature of the image. Although his people worshipped other gods and followed ancestral customs, something in that figure of mother and child touched the deepest fibers of his soul. He ordered that a worthy sanctuary be built for the image and decreed that no one should approach it without proper reverence. During the early years, veneration of the image grew among the Guanches in a surprising way. They came to the Akbinico cave with their sick, their worries, and their hopes. Many experienced inexplicable healings. Others found comfort in times of tribulation. The image became the spiritual center of the community, even though they did not yet fully understand who this lady who visited them was. According to ancient chronicles, the Virgin Mary appeared on several occasions to Anthony, a Guanche man who had been taken captive by the Spanish, and later returned to his homeland. In these apparitions, the Blessed Virgin revealed her identity as the Mother of God and asked him to instruct his people in the true faith. Anthony, deeply moved by these visions, became a providential instrument for the evangelization of the Guanches. The process of conversion was not easy or immediate. The Guanches were deeply rooted in their traditions and beliefs. However, the maternal presence of the Virgin Mary softened the hardest hearts. Where imposition would have generated resistance, Mary's tenderness generated openness. The Guanches began to see in that mother with the child in her arms a reflection of the divine love that they had never experienced before. When the Dominican and Franciscan missionaries finally arrived in Tenerife in the 15th century, they found a ground already prepared by the intercession of Mary. The image of Candelaria had been the first evangelizer, the silent catechist who, with her mere presence, had disposed hearts to receive the message of Christ. The Guanches, who had venerated the image without knowing its full meaning, could now understand the mystery. This was the mother of the Savior, the one chosen by God to bring the light of the world. Chapter 3. The Feast of the Presentation of the Lord. The devotion to Our Lady of Candelaria is intimately linked to the Feast of the Presentation of the Lord in the Temple. Celebrated on February 2nd, this feast, also known as Candlemas, commemorates the moment when Mary and Joseph took the child Jesus to the temple in Jerusalem, 40 days after his birth, to comply with the law of Moses. According to the Gospel of Luke, when Mary and Joseph presented Jesus in the temple, they were received by the elderly Simeon, a righteous and God-fearing man who had waited for years for the consolation of Israel. The Holy Spirit had revealed to him that he would not die before seeing the promised Messiah. Taking the child in his arms, Simeon uttered the prophetic words that the Church prays every night in Compline. "Lord, now you are letting your servant depart in peace, according to your word. For my eyes have seen your salvation that you have prepared in the presence of all peoples, a light for revelation to the Gentiles." These words of Simeon are fundamental to understanding the devotion to Candelaria. Christ is presented as the light for revelation to the Gentiles, and Mary is the one who presents him, who offers him to the world. The candle that the Virgin carries in the image of Candelaria symbolizes precisely this theological truth. Mary brings us Christ, the true light that illuminates every man who comes into this world. The tradition of blessing candles on February 2nd is ancient in the Church. The faithful bring candles to the church to be blessed, and then keep them in their homes as a symbol of Christ, the light of the world, and as spiritual protection. This tradition reminds us that just as Mary presented Jesus in the temple, we too must offer our lives to God and carry the light of the world into our homes and communities. The Candlemas celebration also marks the end of the Christmas season in the liturgical calendar. 40 days after the birth of Christ, we close the cycle of the Incarnation with this scene of light and prophecy. Mary, who treasured all these things and pondered them in her heart, teaches us by her example to offer our lives to God with the same generosity that she offered her Son. Candlemas is, therefore, a festival of light, of presentation, and of total consecration to the Lord. Chapter 4. Devotion spreads across the globe, from the Canary Islands. Devotion to Our Lady of Candelaria spread with unstoppable force throughout the Americas and to other parts of the world. Spanish conquistadors and colonizers, many of them hailing from the islands, carried with them this Marian devotion, this apparition that had given them comfort and protection. Every ship that set sail from Tenerife towards the New World carried within it faith in the Virgin who carries the candle. In the Americas, this devotion took root with particular intensity. The evangelizers discovered that the image of Mary carrying the light of Christ resonated deeply with the indigenous peoples. It was easily understood and very attractive. Our Lady of Candelaria became a bridge between two worlds, between two cultures, destined to find each other in a common faith. In Peru, Colombia, Bolivia, Mexico, and many other countries, shrines and basilicas dedicated to this Marian devotion sprang up. Copacabana, in Bolivia, became one of the most important centers of devotion in South America. According to tradition, a native artisan named Francisco Tito Yupanqui sculpted an image of the Virgin, inspired by the devotion-apparition of Candlemas. This image became the patron saint of Bolivia and has attracted millions of pilgrims throughout the centuries. The Virgin of Copacabana, spiritual sister of Our Lady of Candelaria of Tenerife, performs countless miracles and showers blessings upon her people. In Colombia, the city of Cartagena welcomed this devotion with particular fervor. African slaves and their descendants found in Our Lady of Candelaria a compassionate mother who understood their suffering. The Feast of the Presentation of the Lord, February 2nd, became a celebration of liberation and hope. The Candlemas processions in Colombian lands blended Spanish solemnity with the joy and vibrant colors of African and indigenous cultural expressions. Today, devotion to Our Lady of Candelaria has spread across the 5 continents, in the Philippines, in Italy, in different countries throughout Europe and the Americas. Devotees celebrate the Feast of the Presentation of the Lord, honoring Mary as the one who presents Christ to us. This global expansion of devotion demonstrates that the message of Candlemas is universal. All people need the light of Christ, and Mary is the one who guides us to that light through her example and her maternal intercession. Chapter 5. The patron saint of the Canary Islands, the love of the Canarian people for their Virgin of Candelaria is deep and heartfelt. It is not simply a religious devotion, but a filial bond, a connection as close as family, that has endured for over 6 centuries. For the Canarians, the Virgin is La Morenita, the little dark-skinned one, the mother who came from the sea to stay with them forever, sharing their joys and their sorrows, their victories and their tribulations. From the fisherman who heads out to sea before dawn, to the elderly woman who prays the rosary in her home, all Canarians feel that Our Lady of Candelaria is an inseparable part of their identity as a people. In 1826, Pope Leo XIV officially declared Our Lady of Candelaria the principal patron saint of the Canarian archipelago. This pontifical declaration did nothing more than confirm what the people already knew in their hearts. The Virgin Mary, under the devotion apparition of Our Lady of Candelaria, had chosen these islands as a special dwelling place of her maternal love. Each island of the archipelago has its own love story with Our Lady of Candelaria, its own traditions and celebrations. In Gran Canaria, in La Palma, in El Hierro, on all the islands, temples and hermitages rise up, where the image of Our Lady of Candelaria receives homage and veneration. Canarians who emigrated to other lands carried this devotion with them, establishing confraternities and shrines in Venezuela, Cuba, Puerto Rico, and other countries, keeping the bond with their Heavenly Mother alive. The Basilica of Candelaria in Tenerife is the heart of this devotion, located in the municipality of Candelaria, next to the sea that brought the sacred image. The sanctuary receives hundreds of thousands of pilgrims every year. Many arrive on foot, walking from different points of the island, in a devout pilgrimage that can last for hours or even days. The nighttime pilgrimages are especially moving. Thousands of torches advance along the dark roads, like rivers of light converging towards the sanctuary. The pilgrims sing, pray the rosary, share bread and water, and encourage each other when weariness sets in. Others arrive from the neighboring islands, crossing the sea, as the image did in ancient times. Some come barefoot, fulfilling a promise made in moments of difficulty. Some bring their young children, so that they may know their mother in heaven. Some return year after year, faithful to an appointment they consider sacred. The history of the Basilica has its moments of trial. In 1789, a terrible storm destroyed the old sanctuary, and the original image disappeared into the waters. The Canarian people were devastated by the loss, but their faith did not waver. A new image was sculpted, faithfully following the descriptions of the original. and this new representation was received with the same love and veneration. Our Lady of Candelaria had demonstrated that her presence did not depend on the material image, but lived in the hearts of her people. Some elders recount that their grandparents told them how the entire island wept on that fateful day, but also how the entire island was comforted when the new image was enthroned. The faith of the Canarian people had been tested in the fire of loss and had emerged strengthened, purer, more authentic. The Virgin's patronage over the Canary Islands is manifested in countless ways. In times of drought, the people turn to her, asking for rain for their fields. In moments of economic or social crisis, they find in her sanctuary a refuge of peace and hope. Sailors invoke her before setting sail, painting her image on their boats, and wearing Our Lady of Candelaria medals as protection. The sick seek her comfort in moments of pain. Mothers entrust their children to her when they leave home. Young people ask her for guidance in their important decisions. Our Lady of Candelaria isn't some distant patron saint, but a mother who is close, accompanying every aspect of life in the Canary Islands, from birth to death, from the purest joy to the deepest sorrow. In the Canary Islands hospitals, it's common to see images of the Virgin near the beds of the sick. At schools, children learn from a young age to pray to their Heavenly Mother. And in homes, the image of Our Lady of Candelaria occupies a place of honor, reminding the family that Mary watches over all her children. Chapter 6. Miracles and Testimonies of Faith. Throughout the centuries, countless stories tell of the miracles worked through the intercession of Our Lady of Candelaria. These wonders aren't just legends. They're documented facts that have strengthened the faith of generations. The Basilica's archives hold hundreds of votive offerings, written testimonies, and objects left by devotees in gratitude for favors received. There are crutches from people who walked again, photographs of terminally ill patients who recovered, thank you letters written in trembling handwriting, by hands barely able to contain the emotion. Each of these testimonies tells a story of faith, of supplication, of hope that was not disappointed. One of the best-known miracles occurred in the early years of the devotion, when a Guanche child fell seriously ill. The tribe's healers had given up hope of saving him. His mother, in desperation, brought the little one before the image of Our Lady of Candelaria and spent the entire night in prayer. At dawn, the child opened his eyes, completely recovered. This miracle, witnessed by many, greatly contributed to the Guanche's conversion to Christianity. The healed child, according to tradition, lived for many years and was one of the first catechists among his people, always relating how the Virgin had given him back his life. When everyone had given him up for lost, his testimony convinced many skeptics that the image wasn't just a wooden object, but a true sign of God's loving presence. During the epidemics that struck the islands at different times, many patients experienced unexplainable healings after invoking Our Lady of Candelaria. In the 17th century, when the bubonic plague threatened to devastate Tenerife, the people organized penitential processions with the image. According to chroniclers of the time, the disease miraculously receded in the areas where the procession had passed, while it continued to claim victims elsewhere. The doctors of the time, scientific men trained in the best European universities, could find no natural explanation for this phenomenon. Some of them, initially skeptical, eventually acknowledged that they had witnessed something beyond all rational explanation. The testimony of these professionals, recorded in official documents, adds credibility to what could easily be dismissed as mere folk superstition. Sailors have a special devotion to Our Lady of Candelaria and tell numerous tales of protection on the high seas. Fishermen caught in terrible storms, who, after invoking the Virgin, saw the waters calm, allowing them to return safely. Navigators lost in the fog, who were guided by a mysterious light to safe harbor, shipwrecked sailors clinging to the wreckage of their vessels, who were providentially rescued after entrusting their lives to the Mother of God. There's a particularly moving account of a ship that wrecked off the coast of Tenerife in 1894. The sailors, seeing that death was imminent, commended themselves to Our Lady of Candelaria. Against all odds, the currents pushed the wreckage towards the beach, right in front of the Virgin's sanctuary. The few survivors attributed their salvation to Mary's intercession and donated a silver votive lamp that burned before the image for decades. But not all the miracles of Our Lady of Candelaria are spectacular. Many are silent, intimate, known only to those who receive them. The woman who's infertile, who conceives after years of fruitless pleas and treatments, the man tormented by addiction, who finds the strength to begin a new life after a night of prayer before the Virgin, the family on the verge of breaking up, who restores harmony after consecrating their home to Our Lady of Candelaria, the confused young man who discovers his vocation while contemplating the image of Mary presenting the child in the temple, the lonely old woman who finds peace in the face of death after receiving a blessing with the Virgin's relic. These everyday miracles, multiplied by millions throughout the centuries, are the most beautiful testimony of Mary's maternal love. Under the devotion of Our Lady of Candelaria, there aren't always thunder and lightning, there aren't always instant healings or dramatic rescues. Sometimes the miracle simply consists of the grace to accept God's will, in the peace that surpasses all understanding, in the hope that's reborn when all seemed lost. Chapter 7. The Basilica and the Shrines Dedicated to Her. The Basilica of Our Lady of Candelaria in Tenerife is the main shrine of this Marian devotion, located on the very spot where, according to tradition, the original image was found. The basilica stands majestically facing the sea, like a spiritual beacon guiding pilgrims. Its architecture combines traditional Canarian elements with the solemnity of a great Marian temple, creating a space that invites reflection and prayer. The main facade, in neoclassical style, rises imposingly over the square, while its interior welcomes the faithful with an atmosphere of peace and devotion. The stained glass windows filter the sunlight, creating an atmosphere of recollection. The columns support vaults decorated with Marian motifs, and the architectural ensemble leads the eyes and heart towards the main altar, where the image of the Virgin reigns. The square in front of the basilica is adorned with statues of the 9 Guanche chieftains who ruled Tenerife before the Spanish conquest. These bronze figures, the work of sculptor José Abad, were inaugurated in 1993 and represent the ancient kings in an attitude of reverence towards the sanctuary. The 9 chieftains are represented: Aidan of Guimar, Arthur of Guimar, Benedict of Tauro, Benjamin of Anaga, Philip of Adeje, Roger of Daute, Timothy of Tegueste, Peter of Ecod, and Andrew of Abona. These bronze figures remind us that the Virgin came first to the Guanches before formal evangelization, and that they were the first to venerate her. This presence of the ancient Guanche kings in the sacred precinct is a beautiful recognition that Mary is the mother of all peoples and cultures. Tourists may photograph the statues, but the devout contemplate them with reverence, remembering that these men were the first to recognize the sacred nature of the image that the sea brought to their shores. Inside the basilica, the image of Our Lady occupies the main shrine, surrounded by flowers, candles, and votive offerings left by the faithful. The current image, sculpted after the original disappeared in 1789, faithfully maintains the characteristics of that first image. Mary holds the child Jesus in her left arm and carries a candle in her right hand. Her dark complexion reflects the description passed down to us from ancient chronicles. The shrine is richly decorated, a testament to the love of the Canary Islanders, for their heavenly mother. Silver and gold lamps burn constantly before the image, keeping alive the light that symbolizes Christ. The side walls are covered with votive offerings, plaques of gratitude, photographs, letters, personal objects, left by those who have experienced the maternal love of Mary. Each object tells a story of faith, a silent testimony of prayers answered, of grace received, of love returned. Beyond the main sanctuary in Tenerife, there are hundreds of churches and chapels dedicated to Our Lady of Candelaria throughout the world. In Latin America, the Sanctuary of Copacabana in Bolivia, the Basilica of Candelaria in Medellin, Colombia, and numerous churches in Peru, Mexico, and other countries stand out. The Sanctuary of Copacabana, located on the shores of Lake Titicaca, is one of the most important pilgrimage centers in South America. The image of the Virgin, sculpted by the indigenous artist Francisco Tito Yupanqui in 1583, has been canonically crowned and is venerated as the Queen of Bolivia. Every year, thousands of pilgrims climb Cerro Calvario, Calvary Hill, to contemplate the lake from above and entrust their lives to the protection of Mary. In Medellin, the minor basilica of Our Lady of Candelaria occupies a privileged place in the historic center of the city, standing as a silent witness to the daily lives of the people of Medellin who come to her church in search of comfort and guidance. Each of these sanctuaries has its own history, its own traditions, but they all share the same love for Mary as the bearer of the light of Christ. They are spaces where heaven touches earth, where the devout experience the maternal closeness of Mary. They are havens of peace amidst the noise of the world, schools of prayer, where the Holy Spirit teaches souls to seek God. Each candle lit, each rosary prayed, each tear shed in these sanctuaries becomes an offering of love that ascends to heaven through the intercession of Our Lady of Candelaria. In Manila, in Rome, in Buenos Aires, in Madrid, in every corner of the world, where Our Lady of Candelaria is venerated, the same filial love unites the faithful in a spiritual family that transcends borders, languages, and cultures. Mary, the Universal Mother, welcomes all her children under the protective mantle of her maternal love. Chapter 8. The Procession and the Traditions. The Feast of Our Lady of Candelaria, celebrated on February the 2nd, is the highlight of the year. For thousands of the faithful in Tenerife, preparations begin weeks in advance, with the faithful cleaning and decorating their homes, preparing candles to be blessed, and planning their pilgrimages to the sanctuary. Families renew their images of the Virgin. Florists are filled with orders for bouquets and wreaths. Bakeries prepare traditional sweets to share with the pilgrims. The eve of the feast, thousands of pilgrims begin nocturnal walks from different parts of the island, carrying torches that illuminate the roads in the darkness. Some groups leave from Santa Cruz, others from La Laguna, still others from small villages in the interior. All converge towards Candelaria, singing Marian hymns, praying the rosary, sharing stories of faith. It is a profound community experience, where young and old, rich and poor, walk together towards their heavenly mother. The main procession is a stirring spectacle of faith. The image of the Virgin is taken from the sanctuary with great solemnity by the traditional carriers, men who consider it a privilege to carry the Mother of God on their shoulders. The image is carried on a platform through the streets of Candelaria, accompanied by civil and religious authorities, representatives from all the islands of the archipelago, folkloric groups dressed in traditional Canarian costumes, and a multitude of the faithful who follow her, singing and praying. Balconies are adorned with embroidered shawls, Canarian flags, and fresh flowers. The bells of all the churches ring incessantly, creating a symphony of bronze that can be heard for miles. The air is filled with the aroma of incense and lit candles, mixed with the sea breeze that seems to also want to participate in the celebration. During the procession, it is traditional for the faithful to throw flower petals in the path of the Virgin, creating a multicolored carpet on the pavement. Children throw white roses, a symbol of Mary's purity. Older women throw red carnations, recalling the burning love of the Immaculate Heart. Many of the faithful light candles in gratitude for favors received, creating a sea of lights that accompanies the Mother of Light. There are those who walk barefoot as an act of penance or fulfillment of promises made in times of need. There are those who crawl on their knees the last few meters to the sanctuary, offering this sacrifice for particular intentions. The healing of a loved one, the conversion of a child, peace in the family. Mothers lift their babies to receive the blessing of the Virgin. Elderly people strive to be present one more time at the feast of their Heavenly Mother, aware that this may be the last opportunity they have in this life. The celebration also includes cultural elements unique to the Canary Islands. Folkloric groups perform the traditional Isas and Malagueñas, popular songs that express the love of the people for their Virgin. The lyrics speak of the sea that brought the image of the light that illuminates the path of the maternal love that never fails. The dancers wear traditional Canarian costumes, the women with wide, brightly colored skirts, embroidered blouses, and silk shawls, the men with knee-length trousers, embroidered vests, and straw hats. The music of timples, guitars, and bandurrias fills the air. Traditional sweets such as almendrados, bien me sabe, and truchas de batata are shared. Community meals are organized, where all are welcome, where the visitor is treated as family. This fusion of the sacred and the popular demonstrates how the Catholic faith can truly embody itself within a culture, without losing its essence, how the divine can express itself through humanity, without being diminished. Across Latin America, the celebrations of Candlemas, while unique to each region, maintain the same spirit of devotion and joy. In Puno, Peru, the feast is celebrated for 2 weeks with spectacular folk dances, blending Andean elements with Catholic tradition. More than 200 dance troupes participate, some in costumes weighing over 40 pounds, adorned with feathers, mirrors, and elaborate embroidery. These dances represent ancestral stories, reinterpreted through the lens of Christian faith. In Mexico, February the 2nd is the day when families traditionally lift the baby Jesus from the nativity scene and dress the images in new clothes. Families bring their Niños Dios to be blessed and then organize the traditional tamales feast, fulfilling a custom that unites generations. Each town, each community expresses its love for Our Lady of Candelaria according to its own cultural sensibilities, but all coincide in recognizing her as the mother who presents Christ, the light of the world. Chapter 9. Our Lady of Candelaria in the Americas. The arrival of the devotion to Our Lady of Candelaria in the Americas profoundly shaped the continent's spirituality. Spanish missionaries, especially the Dominicans and Franciscans, promoted this Marian devotion among the indigenous peoples who embraced it enthusiastically. The image of Mary carrying the light of Christ resonated with the spirituality of many native peoples who venerated the sun and the forces of nature. For the Andean peoples, accustomed to worshipping Inti, the sun, understanding that Christ was the true light of the world, wasn't difficult. When they saw Mary presenting him with a burning candle, Our Lady of Candelaria thus became a bridge of evangelization, a silent catechist, helping the indigenous people transition from their ancient beliefs to the fullness of truth revealed in Christ. In Peru, devotion to Candlemas became especially rooted in the region of Puno, on the shores of Lake Titicaca, the highest navigable lake in the world. There, the Virgin is venerated as Mamita Candelaria, an affectionate expression reflecting the filial tenderness of the Andean people toward Mary. According to tradition, the image arrived in Puno in the 16th century. Shortly after the founding of the city, the miners of the region, who worked in extremely harsh conditions in the silver mines of Potosi, found in Our Lady of Candelaria a compassionate mother who understood their sufferings. The Feast of Candlemas in Puno is one of the largest religious celebrations in South America, declared an intangible cultural heritage of humanity by UNESCO. For more than 2 weeks, tens of thousands of dancers and musicians pay homage to the Virgin with their colorful costumes and their ancestral choreographies. Dances like the Diablada, the Caporales, the Morenada, and the Sicuris tell stories of struggle between good and evil, of liberation from oppression, of hope amidst suffering. Colombia has a special relationship with Candlemas, dating back to the early years of colonization. The city of Medellin boasts a beautiful minor basilica of Our Lady of Candelaria, right in the heart of the city. Built in the 17th century, the temple, with its colonial architecture and its gilded altarpieces, is an oasis of peace amidst the urban bustle. But it is in Cartagena where the devotion takes on unique characteristics. The Candelaria neighborhood, one of the oldest in the city, owes its name to this Marian devotion. During the colonial era, enslaved Africans found in Our Lady of Candelaria a mother who understood their pain and offered them hope of liberation. Many historians point out that the devotion to Candlemas among Afro-descendants had a component of cultural resistance. In Mary, they saw a mother who, like them, knew suffering but maintained hope. The Candlemas processions in Cartagena blended Spanish solemnity with African rhythms, creating a unique expression of popular faith. In Bolivia, as we mentioned earlier, the Virgin of Copacabana is considered a sister of the Candelaria of Tenerife. The sanctuary of Copacabana, also located on the shores of Lake Titicaca, but in Bolivian territory, is the main pilgrimage center of the country. The story of the image is fascinating. In 1583, the indigenous man, Francisco Tito Yupanqui, grandson of the Inca Tupac Yupanqui, carved the image after learning the craft of sculptor from Spanish masters. According to tradition, Tito Yupanqui received divine inspiration to create his work, which was initially rejected by the ecclesiastical authorities for considering it crude. However, after a series of miracles, the image was accepted and enthroned. Pilgrims come from all corners of Bolivia to present their needs to the Mamita, as they affectionately call her. It is traditional for devotees to climb Cerro Calvario, from where you can see a spectacular view of Lake Titicaca, to pray and meditate. Many carry miniatures of houses, cars, banknotes, university degrees, or suitcases, asking the Virgin to bless these aspects of their lives. Mexico also celebrates the Feast of Candlemas with fervor, although there it blends with pre-Hispanic traditions in a particular way. On February 2nd, Mexican families bring the images of the baby Jesus from their nativity scenes to be blessed, dressing them in new and adorned clothes. This tradition, known as lifting the Niño Dios, marks the end of the Christmas cycle. After the blessing, the traditional tamales meal is organized, a pre-Hispanic dish that has been Christianized and associated with the celebration. There is also the custom that whoever found the little doll in the Rosca de Reyes on January 6th must be the godfather of the baby Jesus, and offer the tamales on February the 2nd. This custom, which combines the Catholic faith with elements of Mesoamerican indigenous culture, demonstrates how Mary, under the devotion of Candelaria, has become truly American, embedding herself in the traditions of each people without losing her essence as a mother who presents Christ to us. In Tlacotalpan, Veracruz, the celebration includes a fluvial procession along the Papaloapan River, where the image of the Virgin is carried in adorned boats, while thousands of devotees accompany her from the shores. Chapter 10. Symbols and Significance of the Image. The iconography of Our Lady of Candelaria is rich in theological symbolism. Every element of the image speaks to the mystery of the Incarnation and Mary's mission in the history of salvation. Contemplating the image with eyes of faith allows us to discover profound truths about our relationship with God and about the path to holiness to which we are all called. The Church Fathers taught that sacred images are Bibles of the poor, visual catechism for those who cannot read. The image of Our Lady of Candelaria perfectly fulfills this function. Without the need for words, it proclaims fundamental truths of our faith. The most distinctive element of the image is the candle, the candela, that Mary carries in her right hand. This light symbolizes Christ, who declared in the Gospel of John, "I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." Mary, by holding this candle, shows us her role as the one who presents Christ to the world. She does not keep the light for herself, but offers it to all who approach, raising it so that all may see. This gesture teaches us that Mary always leads us to her Son, never to herself. As Saint Louis de Montfort said, "To Jesus through Mary, the Virgin is the surest path to Christ, because no one knows the Son better than the Mother, who carried him in her womb, nourished him, educated him, and accompanied him to the foot of the cross. The child Jesus rests in his mother's left arm, close to her heart. This position is not accidental, but represents the unique intimacy between Mary and Jesus. She carried him in her womb for 9 months, nourished him at her breast, educated him in the faith of Israel, accompanied him in his public ministry, and stood at the foot of the cross at the supreme moment of redemptive sacrifice. The child looks forward towards the world he has come to save, while Mary holds him with maternal tenderness, but also with firmness. He is not a child playing, but the Savior of the world, whom Mary presents to humanity. This image reminds us that Christ did not come into the world as a fully formed adult, but wanted to experience the vulnerability of childhood, depending on the loving care of his mother. The humility of God, who becomes small and fragile for love of us, shines in this representation. The dark complexion of the Virgin in the image of Our Lady of Candelaria also has its profound meaning, and has been the subject of theological reflection throughout the centuries. Some scholars point out that it represents the universality of Mary, mother of all peoples and races, who does not belong exclusively to any ethnicity or culture, but welcomes everyone equally. The color of her skin breaks down the racial barriers that have caused so much harm to humanity. Others see in her dark complexion a symbol of her solidarity with the poor and the marginalized, with those who suffer discrimination because of the color of their skin. In the Americas, especially, the Morenita, the little dark one, has been seen as a close mother who shares the skin color of the indigenous and Afro-descendant peoples, truly becoming one of them. Mother Teresa of Calcutta used to say that she saw the face of Christ in the poorest. Similarly, many devotees have seen in the dark face of Our Lady of Candelaria the face of Christ, who identifies with the little and humble of the earth. The clothes of the image, although they vary according to the times and restorations, are usually rich and ornate, reflecting the love of the people who wish to honor their Heavenly Mother with the best they possess. the cloaks embroidered with gold and silver threads, the crowns of precious metals, the jewels offered by the devotees, all speak of the recognition of Mary's supreme dignity as Mother of God. However, this outward wealth should not make us forget that Mary was a humble woman from Nazareth who lived in poverty and simplicity. St. Luke tells us that when she presented Jesus in the temple, she offered as a sacrifice a pair of turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, which was the offering of the poor who could not afford a lamb. The sumptuous dresses are an expression of gratitude from the people, not a denial of Mary's humility. The true wealth of the Virgin is not in her clothing, but in her immaculate heart, totally surrendered to God and open to all her children. As the Magnificat sings, "He has brought down rulers from their thrones, but has lifted up the humble." Mary is the first and most perfect disciple of her Son, who lived the Beatitudes in fullness. Chapter 11. Spiritual teachings of this devotion. Devotion to Our Lady of Candelaria is not simply an act of popular piety, but a school of profound and transformative spiritual life. Mary, under this devotion, teaches us fundamental truths about our relationship with God and about the path to holiness to which we are all called by baptism. Contemplating the Virgin with the child and the candle, we learn lessons that can transform our existence if we welcome them with a sincere heart. The saints have found in the different Marian devotions inexhaustible sources of spiritual inspiration, and Our Lady of Candelaria is no exception. Saint Teresa of Avila, Saint John of the Cross, Saint Louis de Montfort, and so many other great spiritual masters have meditated on the mystery of the presentation of the Lord, discovering in it teachings that illuminate the path to holiness. The first lesson is that of total presentation to God. Just as Mary presented Jesus in the temple, we must present our lives to God without reservations or conditions. We are not masters of ourselves, but we belong to the Creator, who loved us first and who has called us into existence out of pure, unearned love. This truth may seem threatening to our modern culture, which exalts individual autonomy and the right to decide about ourselves without any reference to God. But in reality, it is profoundly liberating. When we present ourselves to God, we recognize our true identity as His children and find the ultimate meaning of our existence. As St. Augustine wrote, "You have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our heart is restless until it rests in you." A presentation is not a loss of freedom, but an encounter with true freedom, which consists in loving and being loved, in serving the only one who deserves to be served. Mary teaches us that total surrender to God does not impoverish but enriches, does not limit but expands our possibilities of being fully human. The second teaching is that of being light-bearers in a world frequently darkened by sin. Mary holds the candle that represents Christ, and we, as Christians, are called to be the light of the world, according to the words of Jesus Himself in the Sermon on the Mount. Not our own light, born of our merits or natural virtues, but a reflection of Christ, who dwells within us through the sanctifying grace received in baptism. In a world often darkened by selfishness, violence, injustice, lies, and despair, the disciples of Christ must shine with the light of charity, justice, truth, and hope. Every act of genuine kindness, every word of sincere comfort, every gesture of generous forgiveness, every testimony of a life consistent with the gospel is a candle illuminating the darkness. St. Paul urges us, "Shine like stars in the world, holding firmly to the word of life." Our Lady of Candelaria reminds us of this baptismal calling to be light, not for our own glory, but so that others may see our good works and glorify the Father who is in heaven. The third lesson is that of Mary's spiritual motherhood, a dogmatic truth defined by the Second Vatican Council. Mary is not only the mother of Jesus according to the flesh, but the mother of all the redeemed according to the Spirit. At the foot of the cross, at the supreme moment of the redemptive sacrifice, Jesus gave her to us as our mother, when he said to John, who represented all of humanity, "Behold, your mother." And John, the gospel continues. From that hour took her into his home. Our Lady of Candelaria reminds us that we have a mother in heaven who intercedes for us before her Son, who accompanies us in our daily struggles, who weeps with us in our sorrows and rejoices with us in our victories. We are not alone on the path of life. Mary walks beside us, as she walks beside every pilgrim who sincerely seeks God. Saint Thérèse of Lisieux, on her deathbed, expressed her trust in Mary with these words: "If I die, I shall not go to heaven. I shall go home to my mother." This filial trust in Mary is an essential part of Catholic spirituality, and Our Lady of Candelaria reminds us of it in a particularly beautiful way. The fourth teaching is that of humility as the necessary path to true greatness. Mary, being the Mother of God, the Immaculate One, the full of grace, the Queen of heaven and earth, does not boast, nor does she seek glory for herself. On the contrary, she presents herself in the temple as just another woman of the people, fulfilling the law of Moses, like any other Jewish mother of humble means. She offers the sacrifice of the poor. She submits to ritual purification, even though she is the purest of all creatures. Her greatness lies precisely in her humility, in her ability to make herself small so that God may be great, to conceal herself so that Christ may shine. In a society obsessed with visible success, public recognition, the accumulation of power, and constant self-affirmation on social media and other platforms, Mary teaches us the value of humility as the path to true greatness, which is holiness. The greatest saints have often been the most humble. St. Francis of Assisi called himself the lesser brother. St. Thérèse of Lisieux discovered her little way of smallness. St. John Vianney considered himself unworthy of the priesthood. Humility is not humiliation or false modesty, but truth about ourselves, recognizing that all the good we have comes from God, and that without Him we can do nothing. Finally, Our Lady of Candelaria teaches us about theological hope, that supernatural virtue that makes us desire and expect with firm confidence eternal life and the graces necessary to attain it. The candle that burns in the darkness is a perfect symbol of hope that is never extinguished. No matter how dense the darkness we face in our lives, serious illness, the loss of loved ones, failure in important projects, disillusionment in the face of human evil, a crisis of faith, the light of Christ remains lit. Mary assures us by her example and her intercession that her Son has conquered the world, that good will ultimately triumph over evil, that life is stronger than death, that love is more powerful than hate. This hope is not naive or escapist, as if we were closing our eyes to the real suffering that exists in the world. On the contrary, it is realistic, and it is based on the historical fact of the resurrection of Christ. As St. Paul wrote, "If Christ has not been raised, our preaching is useless, and so is your faith. But Christ has indeed been raised from the dead, the first fruits of those who have fallen asleep." Our Lady of Candelaria keeps the flame of this hope burning in the hearts of the faithful. Chapter 12. Prayer to Our Lady of Candelaria. O most holy Virgin of Candelaria, Mother of the Redeemer and our Mother, who with your presence illuminated the shores of Tenerife and opened the path of faith to the peoples who did not know you, hear the supplications of your children who come to you with filial trust. You who carried in your maternal arms Jesus, the true light that illuminates every man, and presented him in the temple, humbly fulfilling the law of the Lord. Teach us to present our lives to God with the same generosity with which you offered your Son. Help us to recognize that we are not masters of ourselves, but beloved children of the Heavenly Father, who has called us into existence out of pure love. May we know how to surrender to God all that we are and have, trusting fully in His loving providence. Virgin of Candelaria, who holds the candle that symbolizes Christ, light of the world and hope of the peoples, help us to be bearers of that divine light in the midst of the darkness of our time. May our words be a light that comforts the afflicted, our actions a light that guides the lost, and our testimony a light that attracts all men to your beloved Son. Grant us the grace to always live as children of the light, rejecting the works of darkness. Mother of Candelaria, Mother of mercy and consolation, intercede for us before your Son Jesus. Present to Him our needs and anxieties, our sufferings and sorrows, our joys and hopes, our fears and worries. Obtain for us the grace to always live in the light of faith, hope, and charity, walking the paths of holiness with the same humility and purity with which you walked in this world. Teach us to be humble as you were humble, to serve as you served, to love as you loved, and to surrender ourselves completely to the will of God as you surrendered yourself without reservation. Protect your devotees of the Canary Islands, of Spain and the Americas, and of the entire world. Bless the families who call upon you with faith. Comfort the sick who beseech you with hope. Strengthen those who suffer under the weight of the cross. Guide those who seek the path of truth. Accompany those who feel alone and abandoned, and succor those who struggle against discouragement and despair. Most Holy Virgin of Candelaria, we seek refuge under your welcoming mantle. Do not allow us to stray from your Son, to become lost in the darkness of sin, or to lose hope in the trials of life. Obtain for us a sincere conversion of heart, the grace of a good confession, perseverance in doing good, and fidelity to God's commandments. Protect the sailors who traverse the seas, the travelers who undertake journeys, the children who grow in innocence, the young people who seek their vocation, the spouses who build families, the priests who serve at the altar, the religious who consecrate their lives, and the elderly who prepare for eternity. Intercede for those who suffer persecution for the sake of faith, for those who have lost hope, for those who live far from God, for those who have never known Christ, and for those who are near death. Always lead us towards Jesus, as you led the ancient peoples, so that, illuminated by His grace, we may walk the paths of salvation, until one day we come to contemplate Him face to face in the eternal glory of heaven, where you reign as Queen and Mother. Amen.